Todd, how are you, man?
Oh man, you got that radio voice. You got that radio voice.
I don't know about that. I don't know.
You got that radio voice, man. You gonna make me feel small tonight, man. You gonna make me feel real small, actually.
Listen, I think you've got it better than I do. I don't know.
No,
You might have me beat.
I got a face for TV, but a voice not for radio.
I've always said, what was it? A face for radio and a voice for newspaper, right?
Man, what's going on, man?
Just got off of the radio for 4 hours today, man.
Oh.
Been here for 4 hours and just got off. Hopping right back on with you, though. Is my audio sound okay? I don't have my normal setup.
Well, you know what? It sounds great for me. I mean, you're probably used to, you're used to a different. It sounds fantastic to me.
Long as it sounds good for you, that's all that matters. I promise. I normally have a little bit different setup at home, but I was able to get home in time. But man, just enjoying football season. It's here. I mean, I love it. Only bad thing is, Todd, it goes by so fast, you know.
Well, we're going to get into that. And most importantly, man, thanks for joining. And we're going to talk a little bit about your schedule. That's a big part of why we wanted to have you on. But we have Cole Bryson with the Fan Upstate. We're live. Yeah, you come in hot. You know, and with most people, I have to kind of wait and bring him in afterwards. I said, man, Cole knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. We'll just go live straight off the rip. But man, much respect to you. And I appreciate you coming on. And I think that, and the reason why I wanted you on is we really enjoy the media portion of the game. And a lot of people, like Richard Deitch and all that, a lot of people only think about the on the field part of it. But we actually enjoy speaking with the people who cover the on the field action, and I'm sure you're on the field at some point as well. But we enjoy that part of the game. So in front office sports and all that, because that is in a lot of ways, because this is really turned into huge business. That is just as big a part of the business as the on field. So man, much respect to you, but thanks for joining. Cole Bryson on from the Fan Upstate, and not just the Fan Upstate here. We know you do a lot of other things. But the Fan Upstate tonight with the Lost Lettermen, man. What's going on, Cole?
Listen, man, I'm with you 100%. I think there's so many different aspects of how people enjoy the game. I think you brought up a good point there. It actually made me think you've got so many different people that when they watch a game, they've got so many different motives and reasons as to why they're watching, right? It might be family playing. It might be they have money on the game. It might be what you and I do with, we're covering the game like it. There's just so many different reasons. And I think a lot of times we forget about that,
Right. And just full disclosure, I typically check all three of those boxes. But with that being said,
that's all good.
But with that being said, before we kind of get to where we are right now, where did it all start for you, Cole? And I would assume it's somewhere in the upstate, but where did it start for you? And was journalism a part of you growing up or wanting to be in the game? Or kind of when did that portion of it start?
It's a great question. So it's funny. No, to answer your question, I never had any desire or I never had any, want to be in journalism or broadcasting or anything like that. It's funny how it started. I was a junior in high school and I went to Boiling Springs High School in the upstate. And man, as a junior, I loved football. Like I had just quit playing football and baseball a few years ago. Like I think I quit in like the 9th grade, something like that. So I played sports growing up and quit kind of around the time where you're either good enough to play or you're going to sit the bench, right? And obviously I wasn't good enough to play. So my junior year, man, I went to Boiling Springs High School, and at the time, Boiling Springs was pretty good, starting to become pretty decent, Todd. And I asked a guy that I knew did the radio broadcast. I said, look, I don't know what y'all are doing. I don't know how I can help, but I want to be a part of it. I said, I'll do anything I can do to help. If you need me to, whatever, clean the booth after y'all are done, carry the equipment, whatever, I'd be glad to do it. So he came back to me, and it was like a week before the first game, my junior year of high school. And at the time, the games were broadcast on a decent-sized FM station in the Upstate. And he came back to me and he said, "Hey, you want to do stats for us?" And I was like, "I've never done it, but sure, why not? I'll do stats." So did it for the first game. Absolutely loved it. I even remember who we played the first game. I think I could probably tell you close to the score, but I did stats and was able to sit right there with a play-by-play guy and the color guy, right? And kind of for the first time as a junior in high school, not really know what was going on, but I enjoyed it, right? So that was where it all started. The next year, I think I moved down to the sideline and started doing the sideline reporting. We went internet after that first year. So my senior year, for the next like 7 or 8 years, it was an internet broadcast only. And I went through, college, kept doing it through college. And first couple of years, I still had a regular job and was still doing it. And I think, Todd, I ended up doing it at Bowling Springs for 8 total seasons. My math might be a year or two off there, but I think I was there 8 seasons. And in those 8 years, I always tell people I never got paid a dime. I never did it for the money. I never made anything. We had fun. It was fun just being a part of something, right? It felt like you were on a team in a sense for us unathletic people, right? So to kind of answer your question, I started as a junior in high school, man, just keeping stats, and then through the years was working part-time at, different radio stations here and there, hosting a Saturday morning show, calling Burns games on Friday nights. After I left Bowling Springs, I went to Burns. They hired me to do the Burns broadcast on a FM station. It was a paid gig. I'd never been paid before, 8 years in doing it. And long story short, was part-time at the station I'm at now for 5 or 6 years and just started last March full-time. So I know that's kind of a long answer, but to answer your question, it was just a junior in high school, and I wanted to be involved, and that's kind of how it all started.
Well, and thank you for that summary. One thing that sticks out to me with that is, man, you must have had. It's actually 2 things. Because you said you played and you figured out, or as you said, you weren't good enough to keep going. Well, you were probably good enough to keep going. You weren't good enough to keep going where you wanted to probably go. So, with that being said, man, you had, and I probably didn't have that this time. You had an amazing self-awareness during that time, because it's easy now with so much media, and you're talking about the pre-internet era or right when the internet started. You had to really be kind of focused in on what your goals were at that time, and it's obviously different now. You're more on a cliff during that time as a junior in high school, saying, you know what, I don't want to be on the field anymore, but I've got a passion for something. I want to be doing this in the booth, and it takes a lot of self-awareness. It takes a lot of humility too, to be able to do that at that time. So, man, kudos to you. And it got you ultimately to where you wanted to go. But talk a little bit about the mindset you had to have, because so many kids, at least I would think so, I could be wrong, but so many kids would be like, man, I'm not playing. I don't want to announce the games. So these people they actually go to school with me. So talk a little bit about the mindset that you had. And you must have had and the second thing is, you must have had a really love for, and I'm not even going to say college or pro football. You must have had a love for high school football at that time.
I still do. I tell people all the time, I own my own small business on this, on top of doing full-time radio, and I do so many different things throughout the course of the year.
There's no such thing as on the side. Everything is.
That's true. That's true. You're right. But Todd, I loved high school football then, and I still do now. I tell people all the time, of all the things I do throughout the course of the year, covering Clemson, covering South Carolina, covering pro sporting events, whatever it might be. I mean, I've had some cool experiences, but man, I nothing excites me more than Friday nights for high school football. It's just still that love, for the game, being involved with it, especially in the Upstate, man. Where the high school football has been so good for so many years. It was then my favorite thing, and it still is, and I hope it is for a long time. And to your point, in high school, it was weird those 2 years because I was walking the halls with the players, and I had class with them, and I was like,
Shit about
yeah.
it.
And the best part was they didn't even really know what I was doing. Like he's over there, like some nerds over there just doing. They don't know. At the time I didn't really know. But I tell people all the time if they want to start, like we had a kid yesterday job shadowing us at work. I told him, I said, biggest thing I can tell you is, man, if you're interested in this, you have to literally not care what other people think, because if you do, it's going to consume you. You have to do whatever you can do to reach the level you want to be at without having any concern about what people think about you.
Now, with that being said, I've got to, full transparency. I don't know the football. Most people say I don't know anything, but I definitely don't know the football space. High school. What makes upstate high school football so special in your mind?
I think it's the tradition, just from so many different programs, all in the upstate, that have had the tradition from over the past, you look at the past 50 years, even going back even a little further than that, 60, 70 years. You look at the tradition, man, and the upstate was fortunate because other high schools across the state and across the country have had good tradition, but for the upstate to have all those schools right there with so much tradition, what that winning built at so many different schools, from the Spartanburgs to the Gaffneys to the Dormans to the Burns of the world, from the Woodruffs as well. Don't forget about them.
Tony Rice.
No doubt. To the Abbeyvilles of the world. The winning led to tradition, and then the tradition led to fan support that I don't believe you get anywhere else. And I lived in Texas for a year and a half and was pretty involved with high school football there. And it's on another level in terms of the facilities and the athletes. But man, like the fan support and the community involvement in high school football in the upstates, it's just different. When you go and you see a Dorman Burns game or a Gaffney Burns game on a Friday night when both programs are at the top, like I'd put it up against any atmosphere, any rivalry across the country when it comes to high school. What separates it, to answer your question, is just the care that people have had for all these years. You look at all the athletes that have come through the Spartanburgs, the Dormans, the Gaffneys, the Burns, the Woodruffs, the amount of people that care. It's just remarkable, and that's what makes it so special. I hope it stays that way for a long time. I don't think it will, unfortunately, but man, the upstate for so long was just a pocket of greatness when it came to high school football.
Well, you know what? It's funny you should say that, Cole. The caring, I think that's special. You know what I mean? Because as a player, you feel a different way when you're going to a game and people are there.
Yeah.
And you understand that they actually care about the game. But I gotta put you on the spot. Top 5 high school football players that you've seen from the upstate.
Players.
Oh
my gosh. Now, is this what?
There we go. I just said top 5.
Let me ask you this question. This is top 5 that I've seen with my eyes, or top 5 ever?
Semantics. Ever.
I've seen so many, man. Like we're talking only football right now, right?
Only football.
The reason I say that only football is, like, when I was calling Bowling Springs basketball games, I saw some amazing Gaffney basketball teams come through, right? With the likes of LJ Peak and those guys. So right. Football wise, man, I was real young when Roscoe Crosby played, but I remember being he was just a phenomenal athlete. I was real young. I remember being at a game when he played. It was a baseball game. People always told me that Roscoe Crosby's the best athlete they ever saw with their own eyes. And I think Sidney Rice would have to be in that conversation as well, just in terms of just the natural phenomenon of an athlete. When God creates somebody, the just the natural gift of athleticism that person possesses. You can't talk about those athletes without talking about Roscoe Crosby, without talking about Sidney Rice. Marcus Lattimore in high school was up there. He's in that conversation in terms of top 5 just because of the athletic gift that he had, the tradition, the program that he was a part of at the time at Burns under Bobby Bentley and those guys. He's definitely up there. Those are 3, and I can tell you this: the bad part is I'll leave a million off, right, when it comes to best athletes and best football players I've ever seen. But there's been some.
Okay, that means they're not in the top 5, but keep going.
It's so hard. It's such a hard conversation to have. And I think that, it's the Mount Rushmore conversation, right? You have the Mount Rushmore conversation. You have the Roscoe Crosbys up there when talking about the Upstate and the Marcuses and the Sidney Rice. And then you look across, I mean, you go just school by school and you think of guys that have come through Spartanburg High School. I mean, people would call me an idiot if I tried to make any list without including, Stephen Davis in that list,
Stephen Davis, oh my God.
So how can I even start to talk about a list without him in it, And the guys that have come through Dorman, over the past couple of decades, the Sharon Peaks of the world. I mean, just the natural athletic gift, because that's what you get at the high school level, man. It's just that raw talent. You see it. It's they're raw. They're not developed yet. They're not their full potential yet. But at the same time, they're in they're that peak of just having that raw athleticism that sometimes you can't stop. I remember. I'll tell you the craziest story. You probably remember it, but just talking about best I've ever seen, best football players, best athletes. I was in high school. Maybe I had just graduated, Todd. Maybe I had just graduated, but I was calling Bowling Springs basketball at the time, and Gaffney played over there one night at Bowling Springs. And if you remember this, there was a big fight, and I think it was 2013, if I'm not mistaken. And you had LJ Peak on that team, obviously, for Gaffney.
Yeah, LJ Peak was good. Yeah.
He was phenomenal. And so what happened was it was a big fight. The stadium the gym had to be cleared. Everybody had to leave, come back in. There were like 3 or 4 players from Gaffney ejected, maybe 1 or 2 from Bowling Springs. Gaffney comes back into the game, and they were down like 12 or 13 points. And Mark Cuff, obviously the coach at Gaffney at the time, they come back from the fight, and they're down 12 or 13 points, and they only have 4 guys to play with. No lie. It's 4 on 5. Bowling Springs has 5. Gaffney has 4. Well, one of Gaffney's players fouls out, so he's gone. So it becomes 3 on 5. And at the time, like I said, I think Bowling Springs had a double-digit lead. And I saw LJ Peak and Gaffney and those guys, and I wish I could remember every single player on the roster at that time, but I saw those guys, the 3 of them, come back and beat Bowling Springs 3 on 5. And you just talk
wow.
Man, you talk about like incredible athletes. That's just one of those incredible moments where you think, how does that happen? How does that happen 3 on 5? Well, LJ Peak was a big part of that.
Honestly, even beyond that, and that's phenomenal. The emotions you have to play with after a fight happens, to be able to kind of gather yourself, you know what I mean? And you don't even know what's going to transpire after that game. You know what I mean? So just the emotions you have to do, man. That's a fantastic story, man. Thanks for. I was not in the building that night, but thanks for.
That one's up there.
So, and I appreciate you giving us 5. So, with that being said, as you get to, because I think you're coming to college at the premium time because sports were big in the 90s. Obviously, they were big, but they really, to me, they started exploding in the 2000s, in the 2010. And so you came along with the internet and all that. You came along right at the right time. So obviously, you already have your foot in the door as an announcer, doing games. So what was your mindset once you got to college in terms of what your goals were getting in the game, or were your goals to stay in announcing and being a sports personality?
I always stayed in it part-time. I never left it completely. And then out of college, like when I went into college, I did that. I obviously majored in sports broadcasting and communication, right? But when I was out of college, I had full-time jobs, as a marketing manager. I taught high school media technology for a year right out of college. I was I was in digital marketing and in the marketing world for a few years after college for the majority of that time. I was still doing radio part time, but I wasn't doing radio full time. So I think when you talk about like my goals, I've always had the dream of doing radio full time because I do enjoy it. It's not work; it's fun, and I think we have an opportunity to really be be a be a light to people who, and you may not think of it like this, but with sports radio especially, you have an opportunity to make a difference in ways that sometimes you don't realize, because there's a lot of people that listen to sports radio who, are coming from all different kinds of walks of life, different backgrounds, have had great days, have had crappy days. And man, sometimes you don't realize it, but you're what gets them through, you're what gets them through their day. And it's a reminder I give myself. But in terms of goals, man, I just always wanted to stay as a part of something to do with radio. Like I never had a goal of being a full-time radio host in the afternoon. And even right now, man, like I don't have a full-time goal, or I don't have a goal right now of being, on SEC network or anything like that one day. My whole thing was I always just wanted to keep a foot in the door. And I think that's the most important thing for anybody out there in whatever aspect, of work or whatever line of work they want to be in or be involved in. Is it's not about the job that you have. It's not about the title that you have. It's just about keeping your foot in the door. And from 2012, when I started, to now, I've had my foot in the door the whole time. I hadn't had full-time jobs in radio that whole time, but I've been doing play-by-play on Friday nights the entire time. I've been hosting a Saturday morning call-in show, during that time. So I think the biggest thing is, man, keeping your foot in the door, keeping relationships, and treating people the right way, and just doing things the right way. I think those type of small things will pay off in the long run. And as long as you have your foot in the door, an opportunity is going to come open. One of those doors is going to open. And just like me getting the full-time role, man, when the previous host left, I had no intentions of going full-time, but my boss now called me and told me that the position was about to come open. And again, I just had my foot in the door, right? So obviously I applied and got the job, and now am hosting afternoons. But it wasn't about having a certain goal or anything like that. It was just about being involved. And I think in life, if whatever we're wanting to be in, if we can just stay involved and not give up, and just stay plugged in somehow, some way, I think it'll pay off.
Hey, man, I always tell people, or at least I say, the best talent is availability. Just show up. Just show up.
No doubt. No doubt, man. That's so true. That's so true. And look, everybody, we live in the world where you have to pay your bills. Like, yeah, you got to pay your bills. You got to make a living, but don't just think that you're going to make money. Like I told you, man, I did it for, I think, 8 years without ever making a dime doing any kind of sports broadcasting. Even in college, I did play-by-play for North Greenville football for 2 or 3 years on the radio while I was in college, and didn't get paid for that kind of stuff. But if you stick with it, the right opportunity will come open if you do the little things right along the way.
Now you just said something that really resonates with me. How much do you think because I can tell you have a business side, or you're cognizant of the business side as well. How much of that do you think helps you just being able to see the full picture? Because obviously the most talented person is not always going to be the person that
Sure.
gets to where they eventually want to be.
Yeah.
There's a business component of it too, and sometimes, to be honest with you, it gets in the way of a person says, "Man, I just like ball. I just like talking about ball." But there's a whole different other component of the business side of it. How much do you think that's going to help you in your own journey?
No, man, it's a big part of it, and just understanding, to your point, how the business works. I think that's the biggest thing with sports broadcasting and radio, and like, even if it's videography, sports videography, or sports photography, or whatever it is, man, just kind of understanding how the business works and knowing what to expect, right? Because you don't know what you don't know, but if you do know a little bit, you can at least know what to expect, right? And we all know that sports broadcasting, what I do, doesn't pay a ton, right? You're not going to get rich off of hosting a local afternoon drive show. But Again, going back to the business side of it, I never did it for the money in the first place. So it's never been about the money for me. Even now. Now, obviously, you have to pay your bills, like we talked about, right? You have to make an income, you have to make a living. But I've always just kind of from the business side to answer your question, man, just felt like if you stick with it and you understand how it works, the business, the business model, I guess you would say, and just in terms of knowing the structure of paying your dues, starting at as the low man on the totem pole and working your way up. Sometimes it doesn't take as long as people think, right? When there's a need, to your point, you said it a minute ago about availability. If you're there, if your foot's in the door, when somebody needs you, they're going to call you, and as long as you're still available and reliable, you're going to be in a prime position.
And I know that you're still sticking with your with that Cole Bryson on right now with the Fan Upstate. You're still sticking. You're doing a lot of things. I thought I'd do a lot of things. You might have me beat, Cole. You definitely probably get more checks than I am. You might have me beat. So with that being said, I know you're doing play-by-play with Burns, which is probably your first love in terms of high school football. But you also, as you just mentioned, you've got the show with the Fan Upstate. Talk a little bit about, in particular, the Fan Upstate and how that opportunity came to pass.
Yeah, so it worked out just perfect, man, because the Fan Upstate is a radio station based in Greenville, right? And it airs in Greenville and Spartanburg and parts of Anderson. The signal goes across the Greenville-Spartanburg market, right? So the way it kind of all worked out was the Fan Upstate has been involved with high school athletics. So at some point around 2011, somewhere around there, the Fan Upstate started carrying Burns football, right? So you could listen to Burns football on Friday nights on the Fan. At the time, it was ESPN Upstate, but now it's the Fan Upstate. But nonetheless, Burns has aired now on that station, on our station, for going over a decade. So a good relationship between Burns High School and the Fan, because so many different little stations across the Upstate carry football broadcast, right? So when I left Bowling Springs in 2018, the guy who was doing Burns at the time, Greg McKinney, he was full-time, hosted an afternoon show and did Burns just like I do now. He left, he retired. And somebody had told me that he was retiring. And I remember I found out during the fall of 2018 while I was still doing Bowling Springs games. And man, I don't even know how I got my boss's contact information or like how I sent a resume or anything. I really don't remember how, but somehow I got connected with him and sent him my information and expressed interest in doing Burns. He interviewed me. Long story short, I got the gig doing Burns. And then, not long after, I'm hosting a Saturday morning call-in show that I had been previously doing at another small station in Spartanburg. They liked that idea, so I was doing that on Saturday mornings and still doing that now. And again, from 2019, 2020, all the way through 2024, I was part-time at the Fan Upstate doing Burns football, hosting that Saturday show that I still host on Saturday mornings. It's a 2-hour high school football show. And then I'd fill in, a lot for people when they were on vacation, when somebody called in sick. My boss now would always call me last minute.
Being available.
Exactly. Being available. That's right. Being available. 100%. And he'd call me and, I'd go fill in. And it's just about keeping good relationships and showing people that you're going to do things the right way. So all that to be said, in March of last year, 2024, I went full-time. And that's when I was telling you, he called me and said, hey, we have this job opening coming up. And I just wanted to reach out to you to see if you were interested in it. And obviously that's kind of how it went down.
Man, you're right, man. You keep your foot in the door or something. Well, and obviously you have to have the talent, but there are a lot of talented people.
Sure.
There are a lot of talented people.
Listen, man, look, I've said it all the time. I'll be the first one to tell you, you can go find 15 more people more talented than me right now. And I've always been one to say that, and they're out there. But, I can tell you this, there are
But you got to show up every day, though.
You got to show up. And while look, I take pride in what I do, from Burns football to Saturday show to the little things I do during the week, from the media guys to the rosters to just to everything that I do. There might be more talented people out there, but I can promise you that those 15, they're not going to work as hard as I work. So that's kind of just my mindset, is if you outwork people and you do things the right way, man, you may not have, like you said, you may not be the most talented, but it'll go noticed.
Well, and I want to be respectful of your time. I know you had a long day.
No, you're good.
Get you out of here in a few more questions, but I have so much respect for what you do. How long is your show every day?
It's 4 hours. It's 3 to 7 every day.
Man, I couldn't do it. I don't know if I could do that one day. I don't know if I could talk about anything for 4 hours. And I know you have a partner, and much respect to your partner. But what is it like? Because a lot of and people like bang on the women and men who do it nationally, who do it locally. Like, people always have opinions, but that is a tough thing to do, and also have to have the all those numbers. Like, most people don't even think about it. You have to constantly have those numbers to back up whatever the hell it is you're saying.
Sure.
In either your mind or you have to be prepared, is what I'm saying. So how difficult is it to do that every day?
I'll tell you this, man. You watch TV, you and I do. We watch whatever show it is on ESPN. I watch them. I love sports, so regardless of who's on there, I'm going to watch, right? Whether it's Stephen A. or First Take or Get Up or whatever show it is. I watch and listen to all these sports shows. And at the national level, the biggest thing that I don't think people realize, at the national level, these guys go in to their show every day, and they have these pre-production meetings, right? But when they get into these pre-production meetings, at the high level, they're being handed a packet of show production that's already done. The topics are already laid out there. The guests are already booked. The only thing that they're required then to do is, number one, know what they're talking about, but then number two, formulate their opinion and make it strong enough that it's entertaining for TV or radio, right?
Right.
So once you get to that level, you're walking in like the Rich Eisens of the world. They walk in, the show's already done from somebody else. They're walking in and being handed a sheet of paper and saying, hey, here's the show, turn your mic on, right? And pretty much that's it. At the local level, man, what people don't realize is 4 hours a day, you're talking about 20 hours a week. And we have no producers. We have no production staff. We have no, we are the show. The two of us, me and my co-host Diesel, we do all the show prep. I book every guest. So we have 1 to 2 guests per day. I'm booking every guest every single day, 365 days a year, business days, obviously, because we're not on the weekends.
251. Keep going.
Right. Doing the show prep. So you've got 3 segments per hour. So you're looking at 12 segments per show, right? So 12 segments of airtime where we've got to prep the segment, figure out what we're going to talk about, put in the surrounding layers, right? The supportive arguments of whether we're disagreeing on something or agreeing on something, the supporting arguments of the topic, scheduling guests, the production side of it. When we get there every day, I'm doing all the audio stuff. My partner does all the video stuff, but we're streaming live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. We don't have a producer that does everything for it, from firing commercials to live reads to, when we go to break, people think we're just sitting there relaxing for 4 to 5 minutes. As soon as the break hits and the segment ends, I'm saving 2 clips of audio, uploading them to our software that puts it out on all the podcasting softwares, putting a title on it in our app, booking the next or calling the next.
So you're an IT department as well.
The two of us, like I say, so everybody thinks like, yes, we do have a fantastic job. It's amazing. We talk sports for 4 hours a day and get paid for it, but it's not that. It's just so different on the local level when you're small, like we are, compared to the big national guys. You are the show. Like, you're preparing everything. You've got to do the work. You've got to do the prep real time. And if you don't know what you're talking about, like you don't have researchers behind the glass wall. You know what I mean? So you've got to know, man. Like I love sports though. So it's not a job for me. Todd, a lot of people look at it as a job, and there's nothing wrong with that. But like I don't get home and have to like get away from sports. I love sports. So when I get home, I want to watch whatever game's on. So obviously that helps. But if you look at it as a job and sports isn't your first love, it is more difficult, if that makes sense.
Well, and thanks for that perspective. One thing I would say, Cole, well, you guys have a lot of advantages. One distinct advantage I think you all have, and you talked about it earlier, is you have a passionate fan base.
Mm-hmm.
You have like people in the upstate, and correct me if I'm wrong, they're definitely passionate about high school football.
Mm-hmm.
And the guys who are playing are like, they're the stars. It is what it is. You guys have a lot of really, especially this year and so a few years to come, you have a lot of really, really good high school basketball players who are young in that area.
Yeah.
You got with Coach Stoneman coming, Coach Sullivan. You've got some coaches who are stars as well. So you've got a lot of things, and obviously you got Clemson. So it just is what it is. So you have a lot of topics that you can talk about to a passionate base that I don't think might not necessarily be the same in the other markets in South Carolina. That's just my own two.
No, that's a great point. I'll say this: there's pros and cons, right? So what holds us back? Greenville, Spartanburg. What holds us back is the fact that we don't have a pro sports team. If you go to the Dallas, the Atlantas, the Washington D.C.s, the big markets, they're driven. Everything is driven by that professional sports team, right? Now, while that is a downside for us, the upside is where we live. You talked about it. It's Clemson in South Carolina, and that's all that matters, right? And, somebody always told me a long time ago, they said, hey, look, if you don't know what to talk about one day, just talk Clemson in South Carolina. Like it's real simple. You talked about the passion. So while we don't have a pro sports team, you're right. We're very fortunate to have those two passionate fan bases that can create a lot of content.
Now you just led me directly to my next question. And like, as Colin Cowherd says, not me, but you guys, we're all in the entertainment business. We all wear makeup. All wear makeup. So with that being said, man, you guys, and I don't know him. Is Mark Ryan still with you guys at the TheFanUpstate?
So no, when he left, I came in slid in his.
Okay. Well, Mark Ryan, he had some real interesting moments, man, with both Coach Beamer and Coach Dabo Swinney. Correct. And that's not really my question. But my question is, you cover Clemson, you cover South Carolina, and a part of it is you have to cover the team, but the other part of it is you have to, like, if the team's not playing well, you also have to say they suck. They're not playing well right now. So how difficult is it to, I don't know if objective is the right word, or how difficult is it sometimes to cover the local schools?
Man, that question right there is the one thing that I think people either are really good at or really bad at. And what I mean is, you mentioned, Mark, who was previously on I slid into his spot. Diesel was already there, so I kind of slid in. When Mark left, I came in, right? Everybody has a different opinion on how they do radio. Now, locally, when you're in a market like ours, it's a small market. You kind of have to almost pretend like it has, it's a cardboard box with fragile written on the side in a way.
It just is what it is. It is what it is. Yeah.
It is. And so to answer your question, it's tough because everybody has different motives. Everybody has different reasons as to why they're in the industry, whether it's the journalism side of it or the broadcast side that I'm in. everybody has a different way about going about their work, a different way of doing things, right? So while some people may want to be the guy that stirs the pot, that's trying to get the maximum engagement, the entertainer, that's fine. Like there's a space for that. Um, I've always said I think you have to have a good balance. And the way that I go about doing my job with covering South Carolina and Clemson is that I've always cared. This is me, my personal opinion. I care more about sustaining good relationships than I do about being the most clicked tweet over the weekend. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't want to have popular content. That doesn't mean that I don't want to have a
It's
lot of
tough.
web
Yeah.
traffic, right? That doesn't mean that I want to have content that's really engaging and people are leaning into. But at the same time, I don't do it for the clicks. I don't do it for the paycheck. So my whole thing is I started in this business and this industry just off of having good relationships with people. And while my job, to your point, is to be objective, is to call it like I see it, man, I do. Nobody last week in the upstate was as hard on Dabo and Clemson as I was. Nobody was. So while you have to be objective, Todd, you also have to understand that you don't want to ever cross a certain line and make things personal. You don't ever want to cross a line and ruin your reputation. You don't ever want to cross a line to where you don't have the access anymore because
That's the thing. They can cut that access off.
right. And that's the thing. Like you mentioned, you brought up Mark, and Mark was fantastic at what he did. But Mark was one that was more about the clicks and the post and the less about the relationships, more about that side of it. Me, I care so much about relationships I have with other people. I care so much about the access that I have. I just don't want that to be ruined because I want a tweet to go viral. Right now, I'll tell you this. Here's the reason I say that, and I'm long-winded here, but I'm going to circle back to the reason that I am the way I am.
That's how I can tell you're on radio, man. You can talk all night here.
So,
Nobody in your ear.
why do I say all that? I say all that in terms of keeping good relationships because I'm going to end the answer with two examples. At the South Carolina High School Coaches Clinic in Greenville every year, I go. And I know so many high school coaches in football, and it's a time to, make new connections, meet new people. I'm invited every year. It's a fantastic outing. So the reason I am the way that I am in terms of how I go about what I do with my job is because last year, in 2024 at the Coaches Clinic in the summer, I was upstairs at the Greenville Convention Center where they host it. And for 15 minutes on a Sunday afternoon, I had a probably 15, 20-minute conversation, just one-on-one with Dabo. And it was just me and him. It wasn't anybody else. And for 15 or 20 minutes, however long we talked, we never even talked football one time. Not one time was football brought up. We talked, life, faith. His fate's important to him. My fate's important to me. And we talked about those type of things for 15 minutes. And not one time did we even talk about football. Not even one time did we talk about Clemson or being anything like that. So then that's 2024, 2025, this past summer, just a couple of months ago, I'm at the Coaches Clinic. And the reason I tell this story is I think it ties back into the reasoning that I gave you as to why I am the way I am. I was talking to a buddy of mine at the clinic, and somebody comes up behind me and kind of pats me on the back. And I turned around, and Coach Beamer was walking by. So I shook his hand, said hello to him or whatever, just letting him go on about his way because I have him on my show, cover him. Obviously, we have a relationship from that. But he looked at me before he walked off, and he looked at me kind of funny looking. He said, "Cole," he said, "are you crazy?" And I was like, at the time, I had no idea what he was talking about. I was like, well, probably most people would say, yeah, like I'm not really sure what you're talking about. And then I was so dumbfounded in the moment. I had no idea what he was talking about. I was like, what? I don't even know what I said. I don't even know what I said. I think I just kind of looked at him and laughed. And he was like, "Are you crazy?" And I said, what do you mean? He said, "What you did this past weekend." Well, then it finally clicked for me. The weekend before, Shane Beamer saw, because he follows me on Twitter, he saw that I went skydiving. And he was like, "Are you kidding me?" He said, there's no way in the world I do that. And he brought it up, and I had no idea what he's talking about. And I said, Coach, you wouldn't jump out of a plane? He said, no, I wouldn't jump out of a plane. So me and him sat there and talked and laughed about it for another 5 minutes or so. And he was asking me like all about the experience and everything. And I tell you those two stories, not to tell you that because I want to make myself look like I can, spend time with these coaches. I tell you those stories because those stories don't happen if I do my job differently. If I'm the type of guy that cares more about getting the clicks, getting the ratings, getting the traffic, stirring up the pot, those conversations don't happen. Those relationships don't exist. So to bring it all back together, my philosophy has always been I want to have good relationships. And if I do that, I think the people that I cover will be okay with me bringing fair criticism when I do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, you got to be honest, and you have to show, at least in my opinion, you have to show you what your opinion is. And sometimes, people are out there for click. And the one thing I would say about, and I'm not a football person by any stretch of the imagination, but one thing I'll say about Coach Beamer and Coach Dabo Sweeney, at least from what I can see from of way far, is especially Coach Beamer, man. He has a soul to him. I don't know what kind of coach he is, X's and O's and all that, but he's got a certain soul with him that connects with people.
Sure.
Especially those kids that he recruits, because because kids can tell if it's not real.
Yeah.
A friend of mine's son actually was recruited by Dabo, and we've got a guy who I know, Blake Stewart, who's actually going to Clemson next year.
Yeah.
Family friend of ours. Dabo has the same thing. A lot of it is because Shane's upbringing with his dad in Virginia Tech and a lot of those guys that he recruited up there in that Virginia area. He grew up around that area. And also Dabo, where he grew up, he's got a certain soul to him. So when that doesn't mean they're perfect coaches, but they definitely have a certain soul to them, and it connects not only with their players, but it connects with their coaches. So much respect. Much respect to those coaches. But I'm glad Dabo didn't lose that game last week. All that being said, he might have been running out of that he lost that game last week.
I tell you what, man, I was at South Carolina. I was in the press box and they had the game on, and everybody was just like glued. I mean, it would have been mad. I will say this: it would have made for fun radio this week.
You know what? And I got two more questions for you. I'm gonna get you out of here.
Yeah.
The next question is, do you think that sometime, and when you came on, you started talking about, how much you enjoyed football season. Do you think and the marketing machine around college football is on like 200% right now? And I think when you're in the Southeast, you definitely feel it. If you went to, the West Coast, it probably would not be as strong, but when you're in the Southeast, you definitely feel it. And some of the announcers, oh, this is the best game ever. It's like, come on, man. it's week one. Let's relax a little bit. Are you at all surprised at how big college football has gotten, and especially in the last 5 to 10 years?
Man, when NIL and the portal hit the scene like it did, I'll be honest with you, I thought it would diminish the product a little bit, but the ratings haven't shown that. So no, I'm not surprised. And to your point, you brought it up. It obviously depends what part of the country you're in. We're in the.
We're right in it.
We're right in it, right? So, it's a phenomenon, man. Like you look at College Game Day and just like what that does to a fan base. And I was having this conversation with somebody the other day about the differences between pro ball and college ball. And I love pro ball. I love the NFL. But people love college because of the passion. You have the youth movement. Like the NFL, that's what they don't have. They don't have the youth. They don't have the college aspect, right? And the way that the college game is going, like as long as it always has that youth element, it's going to continue to be fine because guess what? When one of those seniors graduates, there's a freshman coming in at that university, man. And it to your point, it's unbelievable. It's a train, and I'll tell you what surprises me the most is the amount of revenue that's behind it. It's just unbelievable how much money is behind the sport. But it's our fault in a way, I guess, right? But man, yeah, I am surprised, but at the same time, I love it because I'm a college football fan.
Last question for you. And this is for kind of the business of the game. And I'm big on the business side, and I know it can be difficult. I look at Josh Pate. Is it Josh Pate?
Yeah.
A few other people who've really, it seems like they've just like catapulted themselves.
Sure.
I know they've worked hard. A lot of people work hard. But what do you think is the difference between a person and a platform that gets to that level and one that doesn't? Keeping everything knowledge and all, everybody working hard, all that's the same. But what do you think gets the person to, or a platform to that next level? And the second side of that is, how cognizant do you have to be on staying core to who you are once you get to the, because as you said, you can start, just start hammering people just to get clicks and all that, and you might get to the next level, but then you've kind of lost kind of who you are at your core. So,
Sure.
Answer that question.
Man, that's a fantastic question. I mean, it's a really good question. So, to answer the first part of it, yeah, you have to be talented, like you said, right? You've got to know what you're talking about. There's no doubt. Nobody's going to waste their time listening to somebody that doesn't know what they're talking about. Obviously, when it comes to what you do, you know what you're talking, and that's why people listen.
That's why nobody listens to me.
You've got to know what you're talking about. You've got to be talented, and you have to be passionate. But man, above all three of those things, I'd say that to answer your question on what takes you from here to the people like the Josh Pates that you talked about, I'd say it's the consistency. It's just the consistency of doing it time after time, day after day, week after week. And when you're not getting those clicks, not getting those views, you're still doing it. And like, yeah, you might have two people watching, but the consistency to me, and man, I wish I was so much better at being consistent in everything in my life, but the consistency in any area of life, I think is what pays off in the long run. Because if you do something so many times to where it's a part of who you are, you will be noticed. It's the same thing with sports, man. Let's say a guy who's really talented at the D2 or D3 or JUCO level, if you are consistent and you're good enough, somebody's going to find you, right? Somebody's going to find you. And everybody wants to go D1, D1, D1. But if you're good enough, if you're out there, you're doing the right thing, somebody's going to find you. And I think to answer your question, the consistency is really what separates people, because, it's easy to give up. It's easy to take a job just to pay the bills, which you have to do. It's easy to, allow others' opinions of you to change what you do because, you look goofy and you're like, you've got 2 viewers or whatever. But showing up, I think is what ultimately takes you over the hump. And then the second part of your question, man, I've talked so long, I've already forgot. What was the second part?
How do you stay true to your core?
Oh, yeah.
But hold on, but before we get to that, I want to stop right there because man, what you just said, I have said so many times, and I actually didn't even get this when I was younger either. You got to, and this goes, at least in my opinion, this is not fact at all. In my opinion, you've got to fall in love with the consistency.
Yeah.
That's why, like LeBron James, the thing I respect about him the most is I'm sure he's gone out some nights where he's had the flu. Yeah. He's been sick.
The real flu, not bad.
Yeah.
Because people will tell you it was the flu when it was bad pizza to make.
Yeah. And I'm sure sometimes you get on the radio yourself, you're like, man, I don't feel it tonight.
Yeah.
But you're able to perform. My dad now always get it. It's like, he always say, well, he did this. So, I'm like, what did he do the next night? Yeah. It's all about, that's why they say, what's your average? Not what your high or low is. What's your average? What can you do consistently? So I'm so glad you said that. But the second part of that question was, how do you kind of keep kind of true to yourself?
Yeah.
Because you understand the fact that so many times you are, the highlight, you get benefits from kind of the clickbait and things that are more highlight driven, commentary wise and things like that. And I know sometimes it could be easier to go down that, like even for this, we've done this podcast like 4 years. The most people we've had on this podcast was on something negative that I didn't even want to have to address.
Man.
More than any other podcast. But how do you? And I can do that every night if I really wanted to.
Sure.
But how do you kind of stay into your core and make sure that you kind of stay true to yourself?
Man, for me, it's about again going back to what your motives are. Like what is the reason you're doing it? Is when I wake up every day and do my radio show, is my goal to be the number one show? Of course, we want to be up there. We want to have traffic. We want to have people going to the website, downloading the podcast. We do want to have all that. But for me, man, what your motive is will show. Those colors will come out, and that'll be because of your motive, and either good or bad. I'll say this, there's an old country song that it goes, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And I think that's the world we live in, man, to where like if you're not true to who you are, if you don't stand on the principles, even when people don't like it or whatever it is, if you feel like in your heart of hearts that's the right thing to do, and that's the way about going, or that's the way to go about what you're doing, then you'll be able to sleep at night, right? But if I woke up tomorrow, man, and I decided, you know what, my goal tomorrow is going to be to see how much I can stir the pot and how much I can piss off this coach or piss off that coach. And if I want to figure out how to, be able to have 100,000 engagements or clicks on this post, like my point being, it's when you're at a crossroads and you're faced with going the popular way with what a lot of people are doing, or you're faced with the other side of the road being staying true to yourself, staying true to who you are, it's super easy to go the other way, right? Like everybody's doing it. It's super easy to just fall in line and just say, hey, look, all these guys are doing it this way. That's the way you should be doing it. Well, he made it, he made it to here. He made it, this person made it there or whatever. But my point being, I know I'm rambling. My point being, I've always just believed that if you do things the right way according to what you believe in your heart, then I think they'll pay off. And sometimes they'll pay off in ways where you don't realize that it paid off to help you, right? You think it's all about moving up, but sometimes, you'll have to be brought back down sometimes, and that'll be a payoff. That'll be a benefit. But all that being said, to answer your question, I just think, whatever your values are, whatever, when you wake up in the morning, whatever makes you tick, for me, it's my my relationship with the Lord. And, that's who I am at my core, my identity. I'll be honest with you, without, some people go their entire life and just don't have a purpose or anything like that, man. And without a purpose in my life, I'd be lost, man. I'd be just astray. And you probably think I still am. Some people do, but I think it's all about just staying true to who you are. And I think if you do that, then along the way, if you keep your foot in the door, somebody will find you.
Man, Cole, it's been so nice having this conversation tonight, and you definitely have fans in us, and we're going to continue to shout, not only your program but yourself, man. And but most importantly, man, thank you for joining Lost Lettermen, and thank you for sharing your journey, man.
Yeah, man. Can I ask you a question now?
I got one thing to say before you ask me that question.
Go ahead.
I heard you talk about your faith, and I heard you talking about staying consistent.
Yeah.
And I love you for both of those things. But if somebody offers the Lost Lettermen $5 million, I will diss Cole, Bryson. I will diss everybody.
And I don't blame you for it.
Twice.
I don't blame you. As long as I get a cut, I have no problem with it.
Actually, It's got to be $5 million though, not 4.9.
That's fine.
$5 million. Let's go.
That's fine. Money talks,
So,
right?
answer your question.
So I'm gonna throw one back on you now, since this is the first time you and I met. You're a basketball guy. I can't let this conversation end without knowing how I truly feel about you as a person. So you're a basketball guy, right?
I played a long time ago,
Okay. But that's what
most people would not say I'm a basketball guy, but I did play college basketball. But keep going.
Are you a LeBron guy or are you a Michael guy?
That's a tough question. Man, I'm gonna have to put you back in focus. But you didn't answer a question. That's not a question. What's the question? Is it asking who's better or?
I just want to know, before we sign off of this thing, I just want to know who your GOAT is.
Who's the best player between those two?
Who's your GOAT?
Damn, Cole. That's a tough question. I'm going to say this.
Okay.
And LeBron has the advantage of time because he saw Michael and like he's seen that, when you have that advantage, to me, it always gets better as time evolves. It always gets better. Bob Cousy during his time was a hell of a player. He had trouble dribbling with his left hand.
Yeah.
Kyrie Irving is probably one of the best point guards I've ever seen in my life.
Sure.
Like, better than Isaiah Thomas, but he had the advantage of seeing them.
Yeah.
I would say as a player, LeBron James is probably a better basketball player because he's bigger. He's just a bigger player. You know what I mean? And he can do a lot. He can do things that probably Michael, like left hand, like all that. He could do his skill set is probably a little higher than Michael, just because of the fact that he has the advantage of time. And he saw a lot of great players before him, and he's able to build on what they did. Now, in the public sentiment,
don't start going. I like your answer. I like your answer. I don't want you to give me a butt.
Can I finish the rest? In the public sector, he's never going to beat Mike. It just Michael Jordan has never missed a jump shot in the public sector. And then also from a mentality perspective, Mike he's just a different person. And I think it's kind of tough to answer your question directly as a player, LeBron James is probably a better basketball player, in my humble opinion, than Michael. Michael Jordan played in the 80s. LeBron James played in 2025. 2020. So it's just a different thing to me.
The only reason I ask you that, well, two reasons. Number one, I liked you already, but my judgment of you is solely dependent on whether you're a Michael or LeBron guy. Because number two, Todd, you don't realize it, but I promise you're sitting in front of the biggest LeBron James fan that you've ever sat in front of. So that's why I asked the question.
Well, you know what? I played college basketball. There are guys who play right now, I can guarantee you, who will never play college basketball, who are much better than I was as a player. Because it's just the evolution of man. You know, they're more athletic. They watch tapes that I would never like. Yeah. A lot of stuff, Kyrie Irving and stuff, I didn't even think about doing those when I was younger, man. So it's just a natural evolution of players.
Well, I just had to get that in there. I just wanted to slip that in there. That's what people know me for. I'm a LeBron.
So now you're gonna take all my viewers. I had 5 viewers, now I'm down to 4.
No, Lost
Lettermen, all my guys all our viewers are open. So now they're gonna be like, oh, he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Now I'm gonna go from 5 viewers to 4 viewers. Thanks, Cole.
Appreciate you, man. Hey, I love what you do. All kidding aside, love what you do. Keep doing it. And man, if I can ever be of assistance, you know where to find me. love what you're doing, and I think there's such a need and a space for what you do right now. So appreciate you.
Well, I don't know if there's a need, but definitely thank you for coming on tonight, man.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you as well.